Welcome to Womb Talk. I'm your host, Elizabeth Vanderwelt, the owner and founder of Fruitful Womb Doula Services. In Womb Talk, we like to go over different topics that are acceptable for all audiences. We're not medical professionals. Everything on this podcast is to educate you so that you can make better choices for your body. If you have a passion for all things women's health, then let's start listening. It's a wide range of subjects that are at your fingertips. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on a lot of platforms. Today, we have the lovely... I'm going to butcher before we even start. No, please introduce yourself. You're here, registered dietitian. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Aderet, a dietitian. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me on. I'm really excited to chat today.
Oh, I'm so glad. And can you tell us what you do, who you are? Tell us a bit about yourself.
For sure. So, like I mentioned, I'm a dietitian. I have a private practice. My private practice is called Dining with Nature. I work with women from fertility through family life. That's preconception, pregnancy, postpartum, and then I say pediatrics, but it's really all family. And I take a very holistic, sustainable approach to nutrition, working one-on-one with my patients to really get into the personal version of nutrition for them, their story, their lifestyle, and really come up with how they, using the science and everything we know and applying it specifically to their life and making it so that they build habits that last.
That sounds so cool. I've only been to a dietitian once when I was younger, and it was through the medical system, and I kind of wish I had known that there was maybe other options of dietitians out there, because for a long time I was like, I don't like dietitians as a whole, but I didn't really realize there were other options.
Yeah. It's great. I think I love dietetics. There's so many areas where you're going to find dietitians. You'll find them in food service. You'll find us working in hospitals. You'll find us working in grocery stores now. I mean, everywhere. And it's not a huge field. It's still a small field, but we're around, and private practice dietitians have the luxury of being able to really choose their audience of who they want to what they want to specialize in and get really good at, and who they want to work with. And I think that that's really valuable if you're looking to feel like your unique needs are met. And so, yeah.
I love that. Especially because I never really knew that there was so many different branches to the dietitian field.
Yeah.
Now that you think about it. But so one of the questions you had given me was, how does your personal journey with food and wellness influence your approach to nutrition counseling? And I'm really curious about this one. So I was like, that has to be the first.
Sure. Absolutely. I love this question. So I grew up in a big family. I'm one of 6 kids. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. And it just was a very strong female dominated household. And I always make the joke that my mom was either pregnant or breastfeeding my entire life. And I don't know anything else. So it was that and loud kids running around, just chaos. And so to me, it's almost like the default, that's the norm. And, as I got older and I went through those teenage years, my body was changing, and, you go through those body image issues and diet culture and all that stuff. I learned, and I love food. And whenever I say that, I always kind of laugh because there are some people who are like, yeah, everybody loves food. And then there's some people who are like, is loving food bad? And I so casually say, I love food. And so I think that always kind of sparks something when I say that to people, but I've just always loved food. I've always been interested in it. I love cooking. I love everything about it. And when I learned about nutrition as a teenager, just all kind of clicked for me of food and science and health and all these things that I could bring together. And then when I, went through school, became a dietitian, that's a long story short. I just knew what I wanted to do. I was like, my fascination with women's health from growing up is so surrounded by it, and everything from the beauty of it to the challenges of it. And then my love of food and nutrition, it just I had to bring it all together into one. And that's how Dining with Nature came to be.
I love it. I love it so much. Especially when you mention that you're a foodie or that you love food kind of thing. Because I have said that for a very long time, that I love food. But I actually was the worst picky eater you could ever meet. The worst. If I got my sister in here right now, because she's the cook in the house, she always would be like, you are worse than a child. I would literally, you are preparing me for when I have a picky child. So I just find it fascinating that you said that everyone has a different opinion, really, on how they love food. And that's such an interesting thing.
Yeah, I have patients who say to me, I love food. I know that's a bad thing. And I go, I actually think it's a great thing. I think that makes our work so much easier because when I say to you, like, add peppers to your salad, you're like, heck yeah, I'm down, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
like very open minded. So I actually see it as a superpower rather than as a problem. And then, I think that it just kind of always, it sparks a conversation of like, because I think it's so complicated with social media when people are just taking pictures and videos of their food. It's like, and then they're calling themselves foodie, and you're like, okay, so if I love food, does that mean I'm a foodie? And like, it's like all these labeling things. And so I just think it's like a very muddled thing, but I just simply like, I love food and I find it fascinating and I love having fun with it. And I don't necessarily think you need to love food in order to successfully have a healthy lifestyle. But like, if you do, it's a great thing. And even when people say to me like, oh, I'm a picky eater, like what you just said, I'm like, yeah, but there are foods you probably do love. And it's okay if it's not a wide selection. It's like, fine, you probably have enough of a selection of things that you do love, and that's great.
Yeah, well, I've
Yeah.
changed my eating a lot because I ended up having like an abscess and needed antibiotics. And
Mm.
my best friend had been telling me for years, she's like, I think you have a parasite. She's like, all you want is sugar. And lo and behold, I did a hair and saliva test and I did have a parasite and the antibiotics killed it.
Wow.
And the other day I had a bologna and cheese sandwich and my mother goes to me, who are you? You don't eat bologna and cheese sandwiches. So
Wow.
I'm
That's
just like,
incredible.
sometimes there's some hidden things really in our bodies that we
Yeah.
just don't know about, right? That are
Yeah.
happening and it can really
Wow.
mess you up.
What an amazing find from your friend just from craving sugar, because that's not even so
I
like
know.
crazy. Everybody craves sugar at some point. So that's incredible.
Because
Yeah.
it was pretty much the only thing left that I would eat that I would like. And she
Mm.
was like, you know. And so she lectured me on it for a little while, but I didn't fully take her serious. And then two worlds collided at once, and bam, solved all my
Wow, that's
problems.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
So, we were going to talk today a little bit about like fertility, women's health, and I just was wondering, like, what are some of the key nutrients that women should focus on for like optimal fertility? And fertility is always like a stretch, I think, because
Yeah.
I think we're both right now in our fertility stage, even though we're both not
Yeah.
actively trying to conceive. Maybe I don't know. I don't know your life story, but that I consider fertility as like our
Yeah.
youth, right? So I
Yeah.
guess maybe I should mention the ones that are the best for preconception and ones that are the best for just general women's health.
Sure. So I actually love that you said that because I so often will say when I use the word fertility, I don't always mean trying to conceive. It can mean trying to conceive. It can mean that, but it any female who is in their reproductive years, if I use the word fertility, I am talking about your general health, and I mean, I could like go on a 20-minute thing about how our reproductive like system and our organs are literally the greatest doctor checkup we can possibly have as women. And when we're taking care of it, the ripple effect to the whole body is so impactful and great. And so I love that you said that because like it's one of the number one things I say. I'm like, when I'm talking about fertility, I'm talking about all of it. So amazing that we're on the same page about that. I'll first start and say that when I'm talking about the key nutrients for optimal fertility, I'm thinking about our macronutrients and our micronutrients. And I'll say that this is true if you are actively trying to conceive, and if you are just managing your fertility health in general. If you're actively trying to conceive, you might want to bump things up with like supplementation that you would want to talk to your doctor about, but that doesn't necessarily change the nutrients necessarily that you're focusing on. So I'll just put that out there saying like it's all kind of the same, but maybe in one particular instance you're thinking about a little bit more, a little extra, a little push versus not trying to conceive. So when we're talking about managing fertility health, we're talking about your macronutrients and your micronutrients. Your macronutrients, I say look at it through food rather than nutrients, and look at it through a balanced plate where half your plate is fruits and vegetables and a quarter of your plate is protein and a quarter of your plate is starchy vegetables or a grain, that like classic balanced plate we're always talking about. And this is going to help you kind of reach those protein needs and those fat needs and those carbohydrate needs. Always making sure there's a fat present on that plate, whether that's through a little olive oil on your drizzled on something, or that's through avocado or nuts and seeds, whatever it is, just making sure that you're also adding fat onto that plate. And that's like a really amazing way to kind of approach your macronutrients without getting too crazy about like, numbers and all that stuff, which has a lot of benefit and is super important. But sometimes the numbers can get a little, hard to grasp, because I always say we don't eat nutrients, we eat food. So it's important to just kind of like take this food approach to building those nutrients. Your micronutrients, I mean, there's a laundry list of micronutrients they're going to look at all the time. I always say, I'm like, think of micronutrients as the little keys you need in order to get the processes working inside your body. When you're hearing about all the processes that are going on in your body, often you'll hear this is activated using this nutrient, right? Like it is like a big part of the scaffolding of our body. And so we need micronutrients and we need to be thinking about them, but there's so many of them that it's like hard to sit here and be like this, and this. But I will say my top 4 or 5 that I think should always be on people's minds and should have your levels tested. You should know what they are, especially if you're trying to conceive, and also if you're just looking to manage your fertility health. That's vitamin D. Most people are deficient in vitamin D, and you should definitely have your vitamin D levels checked if you're not already having them checked. And a lot of people need supplementation. That's something to talk to your healthcare provider about. This is not me saying supplement anything, just saying that many people do need a supplement because it's not so easy to get from food. But actually, we get vitamin D from sunlight, exposing our arms and legs to the sun. They say up to 10 minutes with no sunscreen. I'm not giving that advice. I'm just saying that that's what's out there in terms of what's safe. Iron, that's another one, super important. Always be checking your iron levels. Iron is best gotten through food, not through supplementation. If you are struggling to absorb iron, that can be a whole separate issue. But we always want to be trying to have iron-rich foods in our diet to kind of prevent it from getting into those low levels. So that's things like meat, spinach, beans. These are the places that you're going to find iron. If you're getting your iron through plant-based foods, making sure you're also eating with a vitamin C source like citrus fruits, so that it helps absorb it. Another one is vitamin B12. That if you are a strict vegan, vitamin B12 is difficult to get because it's mostly found in animal products. A lot of people do run low on vitamin B12 and don't know it, and it's a good thing to ask your doctor about. If you're curious to know your vitamin B12 levels because you're not sure, that's a great one to ask about. If you are vegan, you most likely will need to supplement. Again, talk to your healthcare provider about that. And then last but not least, and anybody who knows anything about pregnancy, you've definitely heard this one, folate.
Yeah.
That is the big one. That is going to be found in foods like leafy greens and citrus fruits. Folate is like the fertility nutrient that you'll hear all the time. In supplementation, usually cheap supplements will use something called folic acid, which is the cheaper version of folate, and it is not as well absorbed, and that's something to just keep in mind. You might want to look for a supplement that has something called methylfolate, which is better absorbed, and obviously, since we're trying to actually get that folate, it's better to have the more absorbable version, but it can also easily be gotten from food.
That is very incredible. And I had a side question. It's maybe a little selfish one. I'm anemic, so I'm on iron supplementation, I've always been told to take it with vitamin C. But you had mentioned that if you're on a more vegetable diet and you're trying to get like the iron through that way, make sure it's with vitamin C. Is that similar for those who do eat meat products? Is it still needed from the meat to have it with vitamin C, say?
It's less as necessary, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have, let's say, it's like one of those things where if you're going to eat red meat, because that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of iron, and you decided to just like have a little lemon juice on your plate, let's say you're having like a steak with salad or something like that, and you poured some lemon juice on the salad, that's not going to hurt you. And if anything, it might help you absorb that iron better. But usually when we're talking about using vitamin C to help absorb iron, we're thinking about like the non-heme iron.
Okay. I was just curious. That was more of a nosy thing.
No,
I'm like, since I have you, I might ask.
Yeah.
And so, of course, since this is really a lot into, like we said, it's fertility as a whole, how does nutrition impact the menstrual cycle health? And is like there,
Absolutely.
I've heard a lot of like the cycle syncing. So maybe that links like with foods, or this better foods during certain parts of the cycle. Oh, she's shaking her head. She's like, oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, like I said, our fertility health is our barometer for our health. And your menstrual cycle is literally like taking your temperature. It's telling you exactly what you need to know. So if things seem like they're on point, like meaning like your cycle is the amount of days it's supposed to be, and the symptoms you're experiencing are normal and not extreme, right? Like tracking is such an amazing tool. So your menstrual cycle is just an incredible like way. It's a temperature. It's taking your temperature. It's as simple as that. It's a vital sign. So with that being said, there's a lot we can do to support it through food. The same way if you had high blood pressure and you needed to manage your blood pressure, and you could use diet by eating a little less salt and a little more potassium in your diet, right? Another vital sign you can easily manage through diet. Similarly here with the menstrual cycle, like if we're taking care of ourselves through diet and lifestyle, barring there's no metabolic issue or chronic condition or something else going on medically, meaning like if you are a healthy individual that is not struggling with something medical related, I think that's an important point, then diet and lifestyle can do a lot to help you manage your menstrual cycle. With that being said, there's a lot of lifestyle factors and there's a lot of nutrition elements. In terms of going through each phase of the cycle, I'll emphasize it this way. You start with menstruation. When you're menstruating, the first and foremost thing is just managing your symptoms as best as you can. You are losing a lot of blood, and the blood loss is going to mean low iron. You are going to feel that fatigue. And so just incorporating those iron-rich foods into your diet during that time, taking it easy, just nourishing yourself as best as you can. Self-compassion is a really big one, I say, when you're on your period. Just like if you're craving salty food, have some salty food. Don't overdo it, but honor your cravings as best as you can. And that's kind of menstruation. In your follicular phase, this is when things are cooking, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so you want to just support that with the best nutrition you possibly can, as much nutrient dense foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fiber rich foods, especially as you're leading now into your ovulation, when all of these hormones are surging through your body. You want to be thinking about eating fiber and helping your hormones move through your body. Like when you think fiber, think things moving, drinking water, eating fiber. And so that's kind of as we lead into ovulation. And then in your luteal phase, that's when you're going to really feel it. And you're going to have symptoms that you're going to want to just kind of like respond to as much as possible. You might feel fatigue, in which foods rich in B vitamins will be helpful. Maybe you're dealing with some GI issues. That happens too. Maybe you want to be taking a probiotic, although you can be taking a probiotic the whole month. You don't have to wait until your luteal phase. But like thinking about probiotic rich foods. So honestly, there are things you can concentrate on in each phase of the cycle that are super important. Or also you might be experiencing bloating in your luteal phase and want to make sure that you're eating like anti-inflammatory foods and drinking water, right? So there's a lot of things you can do to manage yourself through each phase. But what I'll say is that honestly, if you are making an effort to eat whole, fresh, minimally processed ingredients and like a wide range of them pretty much all the time, you are putting yourself in a good position to be able to manage each phase really well.
I love that. And this is something that I've been saying in quite a few episodes lately, but it's just like there is so much to the cycle. Like the cycle runs your body. That's what I tell us. As for women, that's a control of everything. That's the only one. Oh, we lost camera for a sec. There we go. Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. So can you tell us maybe some of the misconceptions about nutrition that happens for conception, fertility, maybe as a whole in general?
Sure. I think that there's just a lot of information out there. I think there's a lot of I need to do this, I need that, I need this supplement, I need that. I need to buy this. And I get it. I really get it because there's just so much information out there. And I would I would just advise people to be as um, calm about it as possible. And I think this is where like the lifestyle factors really come in. You know, being stressed about all of it is not working in your favor. Feeling like you have to cut everything out. Like when people say to me like, oh my God, do I have to stop eating gluten? And like it feels so heavy on them. I'm like, I don't necessarily know that that's the answer. There isn't a ton of research that says you have to cut out gluten in order to improve your chances of conception or something like that, right? Like
Yeah.
there's some research that backs a lot of the things that you're going to hear out there, but not every answer is every answer for you. And I think that that is like a general thing that I would put out there for everyone, which is to not feel like, okay, so they're telling me I have to do this, so I have to do this. Like, be aware that not every answer is your answer. And if you are confused and there's too much information out there and you're nervous and there's like a lot of things, there are so many professionals who do this work and want to support you, and you should seek them out. Whether that's working with a dietitian, whether that's just talking to your doctor. I don't remember. I don't remember who I was talking to recently. As a colleague of mine said, go to your doctor. Like there's like you know, we're so quick to go to Google or ChatGPT to get our answers or social media before we are to just message our doctor and say like, hey, can I get an appointment? I have questions or whatever it is. Seek out your support. Don't feel like you're alone in what you're doing. There is a lot of information out there, some of it accurate, some of it not, some of it applicable to you, some of it not applicable to you, and you shouldn't be afraid to go find out what's best for you.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is each body's so different, right? So it's easy to be like, everybody needs vitamin D, but I
Yeah.
mean, you said it too. Majority of people do have vitamin D deficiency, but
Yeah.
maybe there's that one person that isn't deficient in it, and you
Yeah.
overdose, but you don't do
Yeah.
it because you're like, oh, everybody's deficient, so that count me in. And
Correct.
that's why there's a lot of different I'm very open to blood work. I'm very, like I said, I did a hair and saliva test. Like there's so many different tests out there to like learn a little bit more what's going on with our bodies, right? Because unfortunately we don't have a microscope and could go like, oh, we're just gonna like look by ourselves, right? You can't just do a scan at home or anything.
Yeah.
So you need
Exactly.
professionals like yourself to kind of get the help to do the little digging that you kind of need. That's why there's oh, I forgot the word. Never mind. It's not important. But we definitely. I think I agree with you there fully that we need you guys to help us.
Yeah. Exactly.
Was that your only misconception? I felt like I interrupted just a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would have to like think of something very specific. You know, I'm thinking like people, you know, people want to when I think of misconceptions, I think of people really quick to cut things out. I just think in general, like misconceptions of don't eat gluten, don't eat dairy, all of these things, people so quick to stop eating things. Um, and I understand the safety of, well, elimination of the diet feels right when you're trying to solve something. It sounds right. It's just not always right. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
sounds really good. It sounds like, oh, all your problems will be solved if you stop eating gluten. And I I feel like I get that. Like I really do get it. Because it sounds really good. It like tracks really well, but it's just not the case for everybody. And it's probably really hard for a lot of people to do. And I think a lot when I think about elimination, I think about, well, what are you subbing in? Because you don't just stop eating something, your body still needs nutrition. And so if, let's say you stopped eating dairy for argument's sake, just for this conversation, you're like, I'm going to stop eating dairy because I heard that that's going to help me improve my chances of conceiving. And but you really like cheese and you really like yogurt, and those are two things that you eat every single day. So what happens? What do you then sub in? You're like, well, I found this really great like soy cashew yogurt instead. No, let me see it. It's full of sugar. It's full of sugar. It's just literally a bowl of sugar. And or you show me like I found this like great, vegan cheese, and I look at it and I'm like, just full of fake chemicals. And I'm like, did you really serve yourself by swapping out that dairy, which was a way more natural product, with basically like a, I can't think of the word, but an unnatural artificial product? Were you
Yeah.
serving yourself? And so like then I like had to zoom out, and I'm like, was that the solution? And if you're gonna take out the dairy, remember that the dairy is full of other nutrition. And let's say we're gonna take out the dairy and not swap it in for any of those things, right? You're gonna take out the dairy and you had a whole plan of how you were gonna, get that flavoring that you like from something else. And then I say, okay, well, there's a ton of nutrition in dairy. I'm not pushing you to eat dairy, but just for the sake of this example, there's a ton of nutrition in dairy that if it was such a main staple of your diet, you are now no longer getting. So we have to come from the perspective of there's a nutrient gap. There's a nutrition gap now, right? You were really relying on that yogurt and that cheese to provide you with some protein and to provide you with some calcium, some vitamin D, and some, right? It was providing you with a lot of things that you're now not getting. And so where are you now getting it from? So to me, when I think of misconceptions, I end up going to the place of everybody's so quick to want to eliminate things to solve their problems. And then like, but you could just be exacerbating and bringing in new problems. And so it's like, how do you find what's right for you? And I think this comes back to the conversation about getting specific.
Yeah.
And being personalized.
Well, like you said, that's very important. And there's so much out there, and some of the videos that I post too, I'm always talking about like you just want to find the real food, like if possible, as much as possible, like local and stuff. Like I'm very blessed to be in a very rural community. Like we get our own eggs from the farm, but then our neighbor, he raises beef, so I could just get it from him, and I know they're just eating it off the land. Like I've seen them. I'm like, hey, I may eat your brother a couple years from now. As weird as that is to say, but at least I know they're raised with love, and that's kind of the majority of like trying to eat as much as possible close to home, which is kind of hard when you're in a more city kind of suburb, like urban kind of living, right? So
yeah.
Let me see here what we've got. So did you want to talk about food and lifestyle changes that could improve fertility?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I talked a lot about food and a lot of nutrition. I think now's a good time to kind of get into the lifestyle piece. So there's like some main staple lifestyle factors that, food doesn't stand alone. I always say it's not always what you eat, and it's how you eat and in what environment. Because you can be eating all the right things, but if you're not taking care of yourself in any other aspect of your life, it's essentially just canceled out. And so I'll make it easy, and I'll start with movement and physical activity. We were not meant to sit all day. That's what I say all the time. We were just not meant to do it. Our bodies were not really meant to do that. Maybe we're evolving in that direction. I don't know. I'm not that type of scientist, but we were not meant to sit all day, and we do. And so even just walking and stretching and whatever you can do to move your body, and this is not even me getting into the fitness piece of it, just whatever you can do to be moving your body as consistently as possible, and just, giving your body a chance to, when you move, the insides move. That's really what it comes down to. Then there's the fitness element of it. I don't think everybody needs to be an athlete, but I definitely think there's value in including some kind of fitness routine that you enjoy into your weekly life. And I emphasize you enjoy. I really believe that you will not stick to a fitness routine if you don't like it. So even if it's, not the best fitness activity you could do or whatever it is, they're always like, work out at this time, doing this thing on this day. That's how you're going to get the best results. And I'm like, yeah, but what if that person is not available at that time and doesn't like that activity? So you're basically saying they shouldn't do any fitness? My answer is absolutely not. You choose the time and the activity that works for you and that you enjoy, and that is what you are going to do, and that is fine, because it matters that you're doing it, period, the end. Sleep is my next lifestyle factor. I'm not a sleep scientist, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but we need to sleep. We need to sleep well. And so, I think it's hard with the scrolling of the phone of it all. Putting that phone down is a very difficult task, and I hear it all the time from my patients. And getting off the couch, that's the one that I hear a lot now. Going from couch to bed. And I really, really get that. And so I say, create a bedtime routine. Same 4 things every single night right before you go to bed. And I don't care if one of those 4 things is scrolling on your phone. But brush your teeth, wash your face, walk your dog, and put on pajamas and scroll your phone for 20 minutes, lights out, do not disturb. In that order, every single night, in that way, can really make a difference in how your body responds to the need for sleep. If your body is like, it's a conditioning. It's a conditioning of the body to know that sleep is coming. I did the 5 things in this order in this amount of time. You know what's coming next. A consistent bedtime is also really key, and consistently aiming to get a significant amount of sleep. But for adults, that's 7 to 9 hours. I know for some people that's not realistic, so I don't get too hung up on the amount of hours. But whatever is going to help you feel rested in the morning.
Yeah.
Really what it comes down to.
Well, that scrolling thing, just to go back to that for a second, like I find I get myself in that loop as well. Like I made it like, oh, I'll do it when I brush my teeth. So that way it's just like when the teeth is brushed, boom, that's it for you. But then I kind of had gone sick and I had stayed in bed watching more and later. And so now I'm still stuck in that trap. But I find that if I tell myself like, okay, at 10:15, I'm done. Like that's the cutoff time. It's really hard to cut it off, but you have to be like, okay, pretend mom's here and took your phone away.
Yeah.
And that might just be another tip to help people out since you're talking about it for a second.
Right. You got to be your own parent.
Yeah.
You got to be your own parent. Like you got to do the thing that your parents were doing for you when you were a kid. You got to do it for yourself now. You said it perfectly. I know there are some people that might listen to this and be like, why is she telling me to go on my phone? I know there are all these things out there about blue light exposure and that like obviously it's bad for my brain. I'm like, I'm a realist. I'm a realist. If I tell you not to scroll on your phone, you know what you want to do more than anything? Scroll on your phone. So I'm just giving you that self-compassion and that grace and saying you're gonna do it. At least do it with some boundaries.
Yeah.
Learn to have some boundaries with it and learn how to stop it and like get out of the loop, basically. That to me is like a better approach than saying you can never have it. It's the same way I feel about dessert and junk food. Junk food's not such a great term. I probably shouldn't say that, but like, you know, ultra processed foods and things like that. I say the same thing. I'm like, it exists in this world. We can't ignore it. I'm not going to walk down the street and see Dunkin' Donuts and Chipotle and McDonald's and pretend I don't see it. I see it. It exists. And so am I going to pretend it doesn't exist and try to eliminate it completely and then just obviously set myself up for failure? Or I'm going to say it exists and I have control over it and I eat it when I want it and it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a huge difference in those 2 things. And I feel that exact same way about the phone and TV and all that screen time.
Yeah. And then did you have any other lifestyle tips? Because I bumped it into something else. So sorry.
I forgot what we were talking about. I always end on stress management. I mean, I could also talk a little about environmental toxins. I don't really like to get into it too much because I think it's a lot of nitty gritty of like, we keep a lot of things in our house and a lot of those things don't have great, things in them. And there's a lot of pollution in there and all that stuff. And what I say to people is as follows. You can stress yourself out about every single toxin and every single thing, or you can say, I only use things that I need. I don't buy every single skincare product out there or every single lotion or every single soap. I use the things that I need. I read my labels and I do the best that I can. My kitchen is stocked with glass for storage containers. I use stainless steel for cooking and I use wood for mixing. And that is how I best keep my environment as toxin-free as possible. And I'm just careful also to think about how to detox. Eating well, fruits and vegetables, sweating, that helps you detox, drinking water. There's a lot of things we can do to detox. And so like, I'm just also, again, a realist. There are toxins in our environment. We can't avoid every single one. We can stress ourselves out over it and try to avoid every single one, but that's just kind of walking up a down escalator in my opinion. So just be mindful about what you're keeping in your house. If you don't need it, don't buy it. That's what it comes down to. And then I end with stress management. We live in a stressful world. This is just it. It is a lot of stress out there. We are stressed. The world is stressful. But the stress we put on our bodies, both mentally and physically, can really do a lot to our health, specifically our fertility health. And so being mindful of that, whatever that means, whether it's managing it on a micro level, which is like your day-to-day management of it, you get angry, or, you have like an emotional moment, or you're really stressed about a work project or whatever it is, you learn how to kind of decompress in those moments. And then, managing your stress on the bigger level, on the macro level, and saying like, hey, this is bigger than just like a little anxiety today. This is like, I can feel it on a greater level, and doing the things, all the management thing on the greater level of stress.
That's a big one. The stress is and like you said, it really is the whole world. Like it's the whole world. You just live in stress. Like it's its own form of hell.
Yeah.
No, it's a true thing in everyone. Like it's always about like self-care or how stress is the problem. And a lot of times for people, it is how do we distress? Like oftentimes when I hear it, I'm sometimes like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna have to sit with it, I guess, because like it is very hard to like tell yourself that you can like get out of it a little bit, right? So I agree with you entirely that that's a very big lifestyle situation.
Yeah, it's a huge one. It's a make or break one, honestly, for a lot of people. It's almost frustrating that it's an answer sometimes because it's so elusive.
Yeah.
Because like managing stress is not easy, and so it's a really hard one to kind of grasp.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about your business. If you have any links for the description, like, are you virtual? Do you help people only in person, or like tell us the deets?
Of course. So my practice works with, like I said, we work with women one-on-one. Everything is virtual. I see patients in a lot of different states in the US where my license covers me. You can find me at diningwithnature.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at diningwithnature. And if you ever just want to send me a DM on Instagram and ask me a question, I'm always happy to answer those questions. My programs, for anybody who's coming to me for like a fertility related reason, which is like trying to conceive, or IVF preparation, or fertility preservation, i.e. egg freezing, or just general health and wellness, that's a program that usually lasts about 3 months. And then anybody who's coming to me with more of like a medical related condition like PCOS, endometriosis, you're looking for a more extended and intense version of sustainable weight management, just kind of coming to me with more of like a medical thing to manage. That's usually where I would gear you into our 6-month program. So we have 2, 3 months or 6 months. And then anybody who's coming to me in pregnancy, this is custom based on time. So it's usually by trimester. So if you come to me in this first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, we'll kind of determine how long the program will last for. So that's its own piece. So that is my one-on-one programs, working with me one-on-one. And you can find out all this information and more on diningwithnature.com. And that should be in the description.
Yes, I love it. And then lastly, I've kind of been asking anyone who's been guest starring, because I'm kind of going to make a compilation for season 2, is if you had one tip to give to women, and it could be about anything, it doesn't have to just be about nutrition, what would you give?
Self-compassion. Please practice self-compassion. I know that when I hear that from my friends and my family and my support system, it means everything to me. And when I say it to my patients, I know it means everything to them, and my friends and my family, my support system, that, you're doing great. You're doing great. Like every day we're doing a little bit and we're getting where we want to go, and just like be kind to yourself, because like I said before at some point in this conversation, I said, there's so much information out there and there's so much we can be doing and all of that. And you're doing it, and it's okay. And you're going to go at your pace, and it's like, it's all going to work out. And I'll just do another little push for seek out help. People want to help you. People want to support you. So find people who want to do that for you. Whether it's dietitians, doctors, doulas, whatever it is. And practice self-compassion.
I love it. That was a really good one. I love how there's certain people I've had that have been in different fields a little bit, and some are like kind of lined up the same, but it's always a different answer to that question. Like it has not been the same one at all. And I'm always like, yes. Because you wonder sometimes, you would be like, oh, maybe it'll be self-care or something like that. And so I surprise people at the end, because I'm like, ooh, let's see what comes.
No, I love that. And I love that it's a different answer. I think that says something. And I'm excited to see the compilation because I'd love to hear what everybody says. I'm sure that's like very wise, like, you know, a bunch of like very insightful things that people say. But I think that's really interesting that people say different things because that says everything about how our perspectives and what people can get from, from different people. So.
Exactly. And well, everybody has different life stories. And I always say those life stories affect that answer, I think, a lot because whatever happened in your life is what's going to bring out that answer of self-compassion or whatever else somebody gives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm so glad you came and that we got to talk, and we'll have to have you back for more because you are just stocked full of wisdom.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. I love it. I love talking about this stuff anytime. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much. And everybody, please stay tuned for another episode happening next Monday.